Okay, let's jump into Numbers chapter 16. We're doing a deep dive today into, well, a really intense moment.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pivotal part of the Israelite story in the wilderness right after leaving Egypt. Pretty dramatic stuff.
Yeah, it's this huge challenge to Moses and Aaron's leadership. So, who are the main players here?
Well, you've got Korah, who's a Levite, so he's already got a special role, connected to the tabernacle.
Okay, a Levite.
And then joining him are Dathan and Abram, and also this guy. They're from the tribe of Reuben.
Reubenites, right?
But it wasn't just them. The text says they gathered 250 other men, leaders, well-known guys from the community, part of the council.
Wow, 250 leaders. So this wasn't just a few disgruntled people. This was significant.
Definitely not fringe. These were established figures.
So what was their actual complaint? What did they say?
They went right up to Moses and Aaron and basically said, "You have gone too far."
Blunt, you have gone too far. What was behind that?
Yeah.
What was their justification?
Their argument was kind of theological, actually. They said the whole community, every single person is holy, and the Lord is with all of them.
Okay, so everyone's holy.
Right. So based on that, they asked Moses and Aaron, "Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" They're basically saying, "Who made you guys so special if we're all holy?" Maybe missing the idea of specific roles within that holiness, perhaps.
That's a clever argument, though. It sounds quite democratic almost. How did Moses take it, hearing this from so many leaders?
His immediate reaction, he fell face down, straight away.
Face down. Wow. That speaks volumes. That's his go-to posture for serious distress or prayer.
Exactly. It shows just how serious he saw this challenge was. He needed God's perspective urgently.
So he didn't just argue back immediately. He proposed a test instead.
Yes. For the next morning, he said basically, "Tomorrow the Lord will show who belongs to him and who is holy."
And the test itself involved sensors.
Wow. Yes, censers. Korah and all his followers, these 250 leaders, were told to take their own censers, put fire in them, add incense, and bring them before the Lord.
Incense offering. Isn't that a priestly duty?
Precisely, that was the point. Moses said, "The man the Lord chooses, that's the one who is holy for this kind of role. Let's see who God authorizes to offer incense."
So he's putting it squarely in God's hands. But he also had some specific words for the Levites in the group, didn't he? Led by Korah.
He did. He turned to them specifically and said, "Listen, you Levites, haven't you gone too far?" A bit of their own words back at them.
Ooh, okay. What was his point to them?
He reminded them, "Isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest, brought you near him to do the work at the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the community and minister to them?"
He's saying you already have a special holy role. God gave it to you.
Exactly. He saw this as them reaching beyond their God-given station. He accused them straight up, "You are seeking the priesthood too."
Ah, so they weren't content being Levites. They wanted to be priests like Aaron's family.
That's what Moses implies. And his conclusion was heavy. He told them this rebellion, this banding together, it wasn't really against Aaron or even him. It was against the Lord.
That completely reframes it. Not a political dispute, but a spiritual rebellion. Okay, so that's Korah and the Levites. But what about Dathan and Abiram, the Reubenites? Moses tried to talk to them too.
He sent for them, yes, but their response was just defiant. A flat, "We will not come."
Just refused to even meet. Wow. And their complaints were different, weren't they? Less about holiness, more about practical stuff.
Very much so. They threw accusations at Moses like, "You brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey," meaning Egypt, ironically, "to kill us in the desert."
Twisting the narrative there.
Totally. And they added, "And now you also want to lord it over us." They felt he was acting like a dictator.
And the big promise hadn't materialized for them yet.
Exactly. They hit him with that. "Moreover, you haven't brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards." They felt stuck and betrayed.
So frustration, anger. And that led to this really defiant question they asked.
Yeah, this line, "Will you gouge out the eyes of these men? No, we will not come." It's like saying, "Do you think we're blind? We see what's going on and we're not falling for it."
That must have stung. How did Moses react to that level of refusal?
The text says he became very angry. Understandably.
And turned to God again.
Yes. He prayed, asking God specifically, "Do not accept their offering." And he defended himself, saying, "I haven't taken anything from them, not even a donkey. I haven't wronged any of them." He's stating his integrity against their accusations.
Okay, so the lines are drawn. The test is set for the morning. What did that scene look like at the tent of meeting?
It must have been incredibly tense. You've got Korah, who'd managed to gather all his followers, the 250 leaders, other supporters, right there at the entrance of the tent meeting, standing in open opposition.
All holding their censers.
All holding their censers with the fire and incense, ready for this showdown, and Moses and Aaron are there too.
And then something visible happens, something that everyone sees.
Yes. Suddenly, the glory of the Lord appeared, not just to Moses and Aaron, but to the entire assembly. God's presence manifest for everyone.
Wow. Validation that God is involved.
Yeah.
What was God's first instruction? It sounds like it was pretty severe.
Extremely severe. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and said, "Separate yourselves from this assembly so I can destroy them at once."
Destroy the whole assembly, not just the rebels.
That was the initial command. Maybe because the whole community was witnessing this, maybe some were tacitly supporting. The text doesn't specify why, but the initial judgment was aimed broadly.
But Moses and Aaron, they plead for the people, right?
Immediately, they fell face down again, that posture of desperate prayer.
What do they say?
Their plea was powerful. "Oh God, God of the spirits of all mankind, will you be angry with the entire assembly when only one man sins?" They appealed to God's justice, basically asking if it was fair to punish everyone for the actions of the few leading the rebellion.
Did that work? Did it change God's immediate plan?
It seems so, because the next instruction from the Lord was different. He told Moses, "Tell the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram."
Okay, so create a physical separation, judge the guilty, spare the rest.
Exactly, a clear line. So Moses had to deliver that warning.
And he went over to Dathan and Abiram's tents.
Yes, with the elders of Israel, and he stood there and warned the whole crowd watching, "Move back from the tents of these wicked men. Don't touch anything that belongs to them, or you will be swept away because of all their sins."
So a chance for everyone else to literally step away from the danger zone. Did they listen?
They did. The assembly moved back, creating this clear space around the tents of Dathan and Abiram.
But Dathan and Abiram themselves, they didn't budge.
No. The text makes a point of saying they came out and stood at the entrance of their tents with their wives, their sons, their little children, standing defiant right to the end.
Oh, wow. Families and all. And facing them, Moses then makes his prophecy.
Yeah.
To prove God sent him.
Yes. He says basically, here's how you'll know the Lord sent me, that this isn't just my idea. He laid out two possibilities.
Which were?
Possibility one, if these guys die naturally like everyone else, then okay, the Lord didn't send me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, that's the phrase he uses, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave.
Into the grave.
Sheol.
Then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt. He's calling for an unprecedented, undeniable sign.
Something totally new. And did it happen?
Instantly.
Yeah.
The moment Moses stopped speaking, the ground beneath Dathan and Abiram just split apart.
Right. Right then, the earth opened up and swallowed them, their households, all the men associated with Korah who were there, all their possessions, swallowed them alive. And the earth closed back over them.
Gone. Gone. Vanished from the community. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
How did the people watching react?
Absolute terror. The Israelites nearby fled, screaming, "The earth is going to swallow us too." Total panic.
Understandable. Now, what about the other group? The 250 leaders with Korah at the tent of meeting, holding the censers.
Their judgment was different, but just as sudden and divine. Fire came out from the Lord and consumed them.
Fire. So earth for one group, fire for the other. Two distinct judgments for the different aspects of the rebellion.
Seems that way. The ground for those rooted in the land grievance and challenging Moses' leadership in that sense, and fire for those presuming on the priestly role at the sanctuary.
Okay, so the immediate rebels are dealt with. But the story isn't over. What about those censers the 250 men were holding?
Right. God gives instructions about those. He tells Elias, Aaron's son, the priest, to go gather the bronze censers from the smoldering remains.
Why collect them? Weren't they symbols of rebellion?
Because, and this is really interesting, God says the censers themselves became holy.
Holy. Even though they were used in sin.
Yes, because they were presented before the Lord. Even though their offering was illegitimate and the men sinned at the cost of their lives, the act of bringing them into God's presence consecrated the objects themselves.
That's a fascinating principle. So what was to be done with these now holy censers?
They were to be hammered into thin sheets and used to overlay the altar.
Overlay the altar. as a covering.
Yes, and not just for decoration. It was meant as a permanent sign, a visual reminder.
A reminder of what?
The text spells it out, to remind the Israelites that no one except a descendant of Aaron should ever dare to burn incense before the Lord. If they did, they could end up like Korah and his followers.
So a constant, visible warning built right into the place of worship. Okay. You'd think that would settle things. Earth swallowing people, fire from heaven, a permanent warning on the altar. Surely the lesson was learned.
You would absolutely think so. But, well, the very next day.
No, don't tell me.
The entire Israelite community, the whole assembly, started grumbling against Moses and Aaron again.
You're kidding. The next day, what were they complaining about now?
Their accusation was stunning.
Yeah.
You have killed the Lord's people.
They blamed Moses and Aaron
Yeah.
after witnessing direct divine judgment.
Unbelievably, yes. They saw the consequences, but blamed the messengers, essentially, or the leaders who
Right.
represented God's authority. It shows just incredible resistance or misunderstanding.
And this wasn't just quiet grumbling, was it?
No, the assembly gathered again in opposition, right there at the tent of meeting. And just like the day before, the cloud, God's presence, covered the tent, and the glory of the Lord appeared again.
Here we go again. Moses and Aaron go to the tent.
Right to the front. And God's message is the same as before, almost. Get away from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once.
God's patience running thin again. And Moses and Aaron.
Face down again, interceding again.
But this time, something was already happening.
Yeah, Moses realized immediately wrath had already gone out from the Lord. A plague had started among the people. It was spreading fast.
Plague.
Oh, wow. What did Moses do?
He acted fast. He yelled at Aaron, "Take your censer, put fire from the altar in it, add incense and hurry. Run into the assembly and make atonement for them. The plague has started."
So Aaron, the high priest, had to run into the plague.
Yes, with the very symbols of his office, the censer, the holy fire, the incense, the tools of atonement, he ran right into the middle of the assembly where the plague was raging.
What did he do there?
The image is powerful. He says he stood between the living and the dead. He offered the incense, making atonement for the people right there.
And did it work? Did the atonement stop the plague? It did. The plague stopped. His priestly action, representing God's provision for reconciliation, halted the judgment.
But not before. Well, not before many died, I assume.
Tragically, yes. The death toll from this plague was 14,700 people.
14,700. On top of those who died with Korah.
On top of those, yes, it was devastating. Only after the plague stopped did Aaron return to Moses at the tent of meeting.
Goodness, what a chain reaction. From a leadership challenge to rebellion to the earth opening, fire falling, and then more grumbling leading to a massive plague stopped only by priestly atonement.
It covers so much, doesn't it? Authority, rebellion, divine judgment, the consequences of sin, the power of intercession, the specific role of the priesthood, and just the sheer stubbornness sometimes of people.
It really drives home how seriously God views challenges to his established order and the different ways people rebelled, wanting power like Korah, feeling cheated like Dathan and Abiram. But ultimately, Moses framed it as against God himself.
Exactly. And maybe the most shocking, the most thought-provoking part for me is always that bit about the next day.
The grumbling after the judgment.
Yes. After seeing the earth swallow people, after seeing the fire, their reaction is to blame Moses and Aaron. You killed them. Not, wow, we saw God's power, we need to respect his order.
It makes you really ponder, doesn't it? How do people in general react to disaster, to consequences, to authority we don't like? Is the first instinct to find fault elsewhere, even when the cause and effect seems so clear?
It challenges you to think about denial, about blame, about how hard it can be sometimes to accept responsibility or even just reality when it's harsh.
Definitely something to keep thinking about as we wrap up this deep dive into the dramatic events of Numbers chapter 16.